Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today, we're digging into a pile of sources to really get under the hood of a pedal that, looks simple, but it kind of changed how people thought about guitar dynamics. We're talking about the Electro Harmonix Soul Preacher Compressor Sustainer. Our goal here, our mission for this deep dive, is to figure out how this, let's be honest, utility pedal really defined sustain back in the late 70s pedal world. And maybe more importantly, how one specific design choice let it stand out, did become essential, even next to all those wilder EHX effects.
Yeah, the timing is really key here. The Soul Preacher pops up around 79. And it wasn't the first compressor stomp box, not by a long shot.
Right.
It was jumping into a market that already had some heavy hitters. You had the Ross compressor, the MXR Dynacomp, those were pretty much the standards everyone knew.
Okay, so knowing the competition, why would EHX, the company known for the big muff, right, or the weirdo microsynth, why put effort into another compressor? Seems a bit straightforward for them.
Well, it tells you a lot about where EHX was heading as a business then. The late 70s, they were realizing, I think, that they couldn't just be the crazy effects company. They were definitely broadening their horizons, building out their utility line, stuff that working musicians actually needed day to day. You know, the deluxe Memory Man delay, EQs, modulation pedals.
Right, so the Memory Man gave you echoes, but the Soul Preacher, it was supposed to make your guitar sing, which kind of fits the name, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Why Soul Preacher for a compressor? That sounds pretty dramatic for what's basically a level squeezer.
Exactly. They weren't just selling a technical tool, they were selling a sound, a feeling. Soul Preacher really suggests what it does, takes your guitar tone and gives it that sustain, that presence, almost like a voice.
Okay.
Helps notes hang in the air, makes things sound more, I guess, polished, like something you'd want in a studio, but now you could get it live on your board.
And you see that in how they marketed it too, right? In the old catalogs, it wasn't with the novelty stuff. It sat alongside the Electric Mistress, the deluxe Memory Man, positioned as one of their serious musician tools. It was EHX saying, look, we do the essential stuff too, not just the weird.
Yeah, it was a smart move. Built credibility beyond just the psych rock players, you know?
Okay, so we get why they built it. Now let's get into the how. Let's talk about the guts, the circuit board. What made that original Soul Preacher sound the way it did? What was inside?
Okay, so the core of the circuit is what's called an OTA. That's an operational transconductance amplifier. That's really the heart of its sound.
Right.
Most of the originals used a specific chip, the CA3080. That IC is pretty much legendary now for that classic 70s compression sound. You find it in the Ross too, actually.
So what is that sound? When someone says vintage OTA compression, what should we be hearing? How's it different from, say, a modern pedal?
Good question. It's definitely got a character. OTA compression, it tends to be a bit, squishier. The compression effect itself is often more audible, more noticeable, especially when you crank the sustain.
Okay, more obvious.
Yeah, and they also tend to have a bit more noise when you push them hard. It's not always unwanted noise, though. It adds this kind of vintage patina, maybe. Modern compressors, like UCA types, they're often designed to be super clean, transparent. OTAs have more texture.
Gotcha. And visually, those early ones were in those cool little wedge-shaped steel boxes with the gold and black print, standard 9V power, battery or adapter, and the controls look super simple. Just volume and sustain.
Yeah, volume is just your overall output level, pretty straightforward. And sustain, that basically controls the amount of compression, the ratio, and threshold together. More sustain means more squish, longer notes.
There was that third control, that little toggle switch.
Yeah.
That seems like the secret ingredient, the thing that made it different from, say, a Dynacomp, which just had the two knobs.
Exactly. That was the crucial bit. That three-way toggle switch was just for the attack time.
So what does attack actually do in a compressor?
It controls how quickly the compressor reacts to your signal, specifically to the initial loud part when you first hit the string. That's called the transient.
Okay.
That switch lets you choose. Does the compressor clamp down instantly on that initial pick sound, or does it let a bit of it through before it starts working? That's why the pedal is so versatile. It changes the whole feel.
It sounds like taking a parameter you normally only find on expensive studio rack gear and putting it right there on a simple stomp box.
That's exactly what it was, making attack time easy to adjust, repeatable, right there on stage. Genius, really.
Okay, let's really dig into those settings. Because this is where it stops being just history and becomes, a tool you can use. Let's say you crank the sustain knob way up, going for those long singing notes. How does that attack switch change things?
Right, so if sustain is high, you're already getting lots of, sustain. The attack switch then shapes the very beginning of each note.
Okay, so take the fast attack setting. What kind of sound does that give you? What style of music?
Fast attack means the compressor grabs the signal almost instantly, kills that initial peak. This is what people mean by squash.
Right.
You lose most of your pick attack dynamics. Everything gets leveled out super quick. It's fantastic for really rhythmic stuff. Think Nile Rodgers, chick-style funk guitar, tight, percussive, or even that super spanky country chicken pickin' sound. Makes every note really pop, very even volume.
So it almost becomes part of the rhythm itself by controlling the dynamics so aggressively.
Oh.
Okay, now flip to the other extreme. Slow attack. This has got to be the Soul Preacher setting, right?
Oh, absolutely. This is the magic for leads. With slow attack, the compressor waits just a fraction of a second before it clamps down. It lets that initial loud pick transient escape completely untouched. Then, right after that initial pop, the compression kicks in on the decaying part of the note and holds it. That's the secret to those singing leads.
So you get the clear pick sound at the start, followed by the note just hanging there forever.
Exactly. You get the articulation, the clarity of the attack, and then the sustain kicks in to keep the note going. Think like David Gilmour kind of sounds, or maybe some of those 70s fusion guys who wanted really smooth violin-like lines.
Makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
Clarity plus endurance. Okay, and what about the middle one? The medium attack. The jack of all trades.
Pretty much. Medium is your balanced setting. It's kind of the middle ground, the safe bet. It still compresses and adds sustain, but it doesn't totally kill your attack like the fast setting, and it doesn't let quite as much initial punch through as the slow setting.
It's just general smoothing.
Yeah, good for evening things out, making rhythm parts sit nicely, or just adding a bit of sustain to leads without drastically changing the feel of your picking. It's the workhorse setting, maybe?
You can really see why players grabbed onto this thing. It gave you all that sustain, really controllable sustain, but without having to use a fuzz pedal, right? No extra dirt if you didn't want it. Very practical.
And if you connect that versatility, that practicality, to the bigger EHX story, the Soul Preacher is actually a really interesting example of, well, resilience.
Yeah, because EHX's history wasn't exactly smooth sailing, was it? They had that big bankruptcy in the early 80s.
1982, yeah. Major upheaval.
So the fact that the Soul Preacher concept, survived that and came back strong later, that says something about how useful it was.
It absolutely does. A lot of the really complex, maybe more niche EHX pedals from that first era just disappeared after the bankruptcy. They were probably too expensive or fiddly to bring back right away. But the Soul Preacher, it survived because the core idea was essential. And the circuit itself, that OTA design, while having its own character, was relatively straightforward. It wasn't some unobtainium-filled monster. So when EHX got back on its feet, it was easier to resurrect.
So it wasn't necessarily the craziest effect that ensured the company's legacy long-term, but maybe one of the most fundamentally useful ones.
I think that's fair to say. It really helped solidify EHX's reputation beyond just being, the fuzz guys or the weird noise guys. It showed they could compete head-to-head with Ross and MXR in that essential dynamics category.
Yeah.
Which was huge back then. And they innovated within that space just by adding that simple attack switch.
And you see its impact in other ways, too. Like, first, it really put the focus on sustain as its own thing. The Big Muff gave you endless fuzzy sustain, sure, but the Soul Preacher offered clean, controlled sustain. A different flavor entirely. Perfect companion on a pedal board.
Definitely. And second, look how long it's lasted. After the bankruptcy, it came back in the 90s in those bigger reissue boxes. But then, crucially, they shrunk it down into the Nano Soul Preacher in the 2000s.
Right. And that Nano version, it kept the exact same control setup, didn't it? Volume, sustain, and that vital three-way attack toggle, just updated with modern stuff like True Bypass.
Exactly. The core concept, the controls defined way back in '79, they didn't need to change it because it just worked. It hit that sweet spot between being simple to use and really versatile.
Okay, so wrapping this up, so what does this all mean for you listening right now? The Electro Harmonix Soul Preacher, it was definitely more than just one more compressor pedal in the pile. It was kind of a bridge for EHX. It showed they could nail those essential, almost studio-like effects, but still with a bit of clever practical engineering. And that simple addition, that three-way attack switch, turned it into one of the most musical and useful vintage compressors out there. Understanding this pedal, especially that attack switch, really shows how tiny engineering details can make a huge difference in sound. Knowing the difference between fast, medium, and slow attack means you can choose exactly the dynamic response you need, whether it's choppy funk rhythm or a lead that just sings on forever. Knowing about that OTA chip, that toggle, it just gives you more power to shape your sound.
And it leaves us with a really interesting thought, something for you to chew on, maybe. Yeah. When you look at these iconic gear brands, the ones that last for decades, survive bankruptcies, trends coming and going, how much of that long-term success is really down to their most famous, maybe most radical effects? Or is it actually built on the back of these practical utility tools? Things like the Soul Preacher, whose core ideas were just so fundamentally useful and versatile that they simply refused to disappear. Makes you think, doesn't it?